10 rock bands, 10 moments when somebody put their name on something and said, "We're done. We will not tour again." It's in writing. Mötley Crüe notarized theirs, signed it in front of the global media, had their attorney there in the room, called it a cessation of touring agreement, the first of its kind in rock history, then set it on fire 5 years later in a viral video. But before we get to the Crüe, 9 other bands tried the exact same thing. Some broke the agreement themselves, some had it broken for them, and some watched lawyers turn the contract into a weapon pointed directly at the music.
Please help me.
Every single one of them found out the same way. In rock and roll, even a signature doesn't always mean what you think it means. Number 10, Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin didn't go to court. They didn't have attorneys negotiate the terms. They just looked at each other, agreed unanimously, and issued a formal statement to the world. And that was that. September 25th, 1980, Jimmy Page's estate, outside London. John Bonham had been drinking heavily through rehearsals the day before, reportedly consuming a staggering amount of vodka, and had been put to bed. The next afternoon, the road manager went to wake him. He couldn't. At 32 years old, John Bonham was gone. Asphyxiation. The death was ruled accidental. And now, Robert Plant, Jimmy Page, and John Paul Jones had to figure out what came next. What you do when the fourth corner of the thing you built falls away. There were names floating around, famous drummers who might step in. Cozy Powell, Simon Kirke, even Carmine Appice was mentioned. The speculation was everywhere. Here's the thing, though. The surviving members never entertained it. Not seriously. Not once. They took a few weeks, and on December 4th, 1980, they released a statement that read, "We wish it to be known that the loss of our dear friend and the deep sense of undivided harmony felt by ourselves and our manager have led us to decide that we could not continue as we were." Robert Plant, years later. When we lost John, we agreed unanimously. That was that. And the thing is, unlike almost everyone else on this list, they mostly kept their word. They reunited twice in the 80s, with other drummers for one-off events. And then in 2007, they played the O2 Arena in London with Jason Bonham, Bonham's son, and it was magnificent. 20 million people applied for 18,000 tickets. Promoters were dangling tour offers reportedly worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The music press was convinced a full reunion was coming. Jimmy Page was clearly interested, and Robert Plant walked away. You know what that takes? To be offered everything the industry can give you. The money, the stadiums, the vindication, and say no, because we meant what we said. That's a specific kind of integrity that this business doesn't see very often. Led Zeppelin made a quiet promise in grief, and they honored it for over 40 years, which makes them one of the only bands on this entire list who did. Number 9, Kiss. Kiss pulled this off so cleanly the first time, it almost worked. Almost. The year 2000, the farewell tour. All 4 original members, Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, Peter Criss, Ace Frehley, back together for the last time. Gene Simmons said it with a straight face. There just aren't any more mountains to climb. We want to go out in style. The merchandise sold. The arenas filled. Fans got their moment. And Criss and Frehley both had reunion contracts that, this is the detail nobody talks about, were set to expire during the tour itself. Not after it, during it. Chris reportedly destroyed his drum kit at his final show in frustration.
I wanna give it all to you.
In 2002, Kiss came back, with Tommy Thayer replacing Frehley, with Eric Singer replacing Chris, with Paul Stanley's subsequent explanation, which is honestly one of the most honest things a rock star has ever said out loud. People change their minds. What one says one day with total commitment may at another time turn out not to be so. You have to respect that, or at least appreciate the sheer audacity of it. They toured through the next 17 years, and then, in 2018, they announced the end of the road tour, their second farewell. If you were at a Kiss show in 2000, and you were at a Kiss show in 2019, you had now said goodbye to the same band twice, and paid for the privilege both times. The end of the road tour ran from January 2019 all the way to December 2023. 4 years. Their final show was at Madison Square Garden in their hometown, and instead of quietly calling it a career, Kiss announced they would continue on as digital avatars, holograms. The band that couldn't stop touring would now tour forever, without bodies, without age, without the possibility of any authentic farewell ever again. You probably have a strong opinion about that. I'll let you decide whether it's genius or something else entirely. Real talk. Only 9% of you are subscribed. That hurts. We're spending hours digging through archives, fact-checking every detail, bringing these stories back to life. And if you're watching this far, you clearly care. So hit subscribe. It's free and takes 2 seconds. Now, to my subscribers, barely any of you have joined the membership. And honestly, that stings even more. You know the work we put in. You keep coming back. If these videos have ever made you feel something, if this music means something to you, join the membership. It's $1 coffee a month, and it's the only way we keep this going. Let's build this together. All right, back to it. Number 8, The Beatles. There's a detail about the Beatles' breakup that most people either don't know or forget. By 1970, the greatest band in rock history hadn't just grown apart creatively, they were locked in a legally binding contractual partnership, a formal business structure from 1967, and they couldn't simply stop.
I need somebody help, not just anybody.
Somebody had to take it to court. That somebody was Paul McCartney. He went to London's High Court of Justice in 1970 to dissolve the partnership. His own bandmates, John Lennon, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr, were on the other side of the table.
And I do appreciate you being around.
The central disagreement was over Alan Klein, the manager that John, George, and Ringo wanted to keep, while Paul wanted gone. McCartney later said, "The only way for me to save the Beatles and Apple was to sue the band." Sit with that for a second. The man who co-wrote Let It Be had to serve legal papers to the men he'd built his life with.
Won't you please help me?
The court ruled in McCartney's favor in 1971 and appointed a receiver to oversee their business interests. But the wrangling didn't stop there. Lawyers on all sides kept negotiating, kept fighting, kept arguing over who owed what to whom.
But every now and then I feel so insecure.
And through all of it, through all the press releases and countersuits and solo albums and public comments, there was always the distant possibility.
I never needed anybody's help in any.
John Lennon was in New York. Paul was in London. George was somewhere in the middle. Ringo was Ringo. People talked, quietly, about what might happen someday.
Help me if you can, I'm feeling down.
It wasn't until 1974 that all 4 of them signed what became known as the Beatles Agreement, the formal legal dissolution of everything they'd built together. 6 years later, on December 8, 1980, John Lennon was shot and killed outside his apartment building in New York City. The Beatles' agreement became, without anyone intending it to, their final collective legal act, and the question of what might have happened someday became a question that history answered for them. Some doors, once they close, don't come back open. Not for any reason, and not for any amount of money. Number 7. Lynyrd Skynyrd. October 20th, 1977. A chartered Convair CV-240 carrying Lynyrd Skynyrd runs out of fuel somewhere over southwestern Mississippi and goes down in the dark. The crash kills Ronnie Van Zant, guitarist Steve Gaines, his sister and backup singer Cassie Gaines, and road manager Dean Kilpatrick. 20 others survive, many of them pulling each other out of the wreckage in the swamp, screaming in the dark. In the aftermath, the survivors made a promise among themselves and to the families of the dead, an agreement that was solemnly binding, even if it wasn't notarized. Where the sky was blue. The Lynyrd Skynyrd name would not be exploited for profit. It would not be used to make money off the tragedy. The brand, such as it was, would die with Ronnie and Steve and Cassie. That was the oath. 10 years passed, and in 1987, the surviving members, Gary Rossington, Leon Wilkeson, Billy Powell, Ed King, and Artemis Pyle, announced what was supposed to be one thing only: a tribute tour. A single run of shows to honor the people they'd lost. Ronnie Van Zant's younger brother Johnny stepped in as vocalist. Alan Collins, paralyzed from a car accident the year before, served as musical director from a wheelchair, wheeled out nightly to address audiences directly. The Southern, by the Grace of God, Lynyrd Skynyrd Tribute Tour, 1987. It was supposed to be one night, one run, then done. Here's what happened instead. The tribute tour grossed millions, and the surviving members decided to keep going. They went back into the studio, they released new records. Lynyrd Skynyrd was back, indefinitely, as a professional touring band. Ronnie Van Zant's widow and Steve Gaines's widow sued. Their claim was simple and devastating. The survivors had violated the agreement made in the wreckage, never to exploit the name. The settlement required the widows to receive nearly 30% of the band's touring revenue from that point forward, and imposed specific lineup requirements, including that at least 3 pre-crash members had to be involved at any given time. Gary Rossington, the last founding member left, died on March 5, 2023. The band continues to tour. Number 6. The Doors. Jim Morrison was a lot of things, but he was also, and this part gets skipped, profoundly protective of the band's artistic integrity in ways that went on paper. In 1970, after a near miss with Buick, the auto company offered $75,000 to use Light My Fire in a television commercial, and Morrison threatened to smash a Buick on stage every night in response until the deal died. The 4 original Doors signed a formal band agreement. Any business decision, any commercial deal, any use of the band name or imagery required the unanimous consent of all 4 members. Every single time, no majority rule, no one person overriding the others. All 4, always. Jim Morrison died in Paris on July 3, 1971. He was 27. No time to wallow in the mire. After his death, The three surviving members, Ray Manzarek, Robbie Krieger, and John Densmore, reached an understanding. The Doors, as a performing entity, died with Jim. They released 2 more studio albums without him, doing their best to honor what remained. And then, quietly, they moved on. Manzarek produced albums. Krieger played with other groups. Densmore wrote, played jazz, guarded the legacy. In 2002, Manzarek and Krieger recruited Ian Astbury of The Cult and started touring as the Doors of the 21st century. Densmore declined to participate. He told them he had no objection to them playing Doors songs, just don't use the name, don't use the logo, don't project Jim's face on the screens. They proceeded anyway. And the phrase, of the 21st century, Densmore's lawyers later documented this, was often printed in fine print in the promotional materials. The Doors. Giant font, of the 21st century. Small. Densmore sued in 2003, invoking the 1970 Unanimous Consent Agreement. In 2005, a judge ruled in his favor. Manzarek and Krieger were ordered to stop using any form of the Doors name, pay $3.2 million in damages, and an additional $2 million in legal costs. The appeals court upheld it. The California Supreme Court refused to hear their challenge. $5 million. Permanent injunction. Done. Densmore, the Doors are Ray, Jim, Robbie, and John. Not Ray, Robbie, Fred, Tom, and Herman. After it was over, he said he was financially fine and emotionally drained, and that he still loved those men, and that made it worse. Number 5. Creedence Clearwater Revival / John Fogerty. Here's a thing that should be impossible. You write one of the most iconic catalogs in American rock history, Proud Mary, Bad Moon Rising, Fortunate Son, Have You Ever Seen the Rain? You write those songs. You sing those songs, you play them every night on stage, and every time someone hears them, they immediately associate them with you. And then, for a stretch of years, you can't perform them, because if you do, your enemy gets paid. That is what happened to John Fogerty. The story starts in 1967. CCR is young, hungry, and naive. Fantasy Records owner Saul Zaentz brings them in, and they sign a deal that at the time seemed like the only option, and in retrospect was what Fogerty himself would later call, without hesitation, legal slavery. The label owned the distribution rights and the publishing rights to everything CCR ever recorded, not shared, owned. The band received some of the lowest royalty rates in the business. CCR broke up in 1972. Fogerty, still bound to fantasy as a solo artist, tried to extricate himself. In 1980, 8 years after the breakup, he relinquished his artist royalties entirely to Zaentz, just to get loose from the deal. He gave away his right to be paid for songs he'd written, just to be free. And even after that, he couldn't bring himself to play those songs live, because every time he performed CCR material, it enriched Zaentz. So for years, through the heart of the 1980s, while Fortunate Son kept showing up in films, while Bad Moon Rising kept getting played at stadiums, while his songs kept living everywhere in American culture, John Fogerty stood on stage at his own concerts and didn't play them. Someone told me long ago, then Zaentz sued him for plagiarism, not for breaking the contract, for writing a new song, The Old Man Down the Road, in 1985, that Fantasy claimed was too similar to CCR's Run Through the Jungle. Fogerty had allegedly plagiarized himself. He won the case, but legal fees, years, emotional toll.
It's been coming for some time.
Saul Zaentz died in 2014. Concord Music had purchased Fantasy in 2004 and began restoring Fogerty's royalties. And in January 2023, 56 years after CCR signed that first contract, John Fogerty bought back a majority stake in his own publishing catalog. 56 years to own the songs he wrote.
Before the storm, I know.
Number 4, Styx / Dennis DeYoung.
My blood is boiling, my brain IBM.
If you've ever heard Come Sail Away on a car radio and felt something move in your chest before the chorus even landed, Dennis DeYoung wrote that. Lady, Babe, The Best of Times, Mr. Roboto, Too Much Time on My Hands, Show Me the Way.
You're wondering who I am. Secret, secret, I've got a secret.
7 of Styx's 8 Billboard Top 10 singles were written by the same person, the band's founding keyboardist and primary lead vocalist. The man who built more of what Styx was than any other individual contributor. And in 1999, his bandmates went on tour without him. And in 2001, a legal settlement made it permanent. Here's the setup. In 1990, Styx members renewed a formal partnership agreement that required unanimous consent for all major band decisions. All 5 members, every significant choice. That clause mattered. It was the agreed framework for how they operated.
I'm just a man whose circumstances went beyond.
In 1998, DeYoung fell seriously ill with Epstein-Barr syndrome, a debilitating condition that affected his energy and his sensitivity to light and sound. He asked his bandmates, Tommy Shaw and James Young, primarily, to delay their upcoming 1999 tour by 6 months while he recovered. 6 months. Give him 6 months.
I'm not the savior. Forget what you know.
Shaw and Young said no. They brought in Lawrence Gowan as a replacement vocalist and went out on the road as Styx. For the first time in the band's history, they toured without DeYoung.
My blood is boiling, my brain IBM.
He filed suit in October 2000, claiming the tour violated the 1990 unanimous consent agreement. He claimed misuse of the Styx trademark. He wanted the name back, or a share of the profits, or both.
I've got a secret. Who hides behind a mask?
The case settled in 2001. The terms Shaw, Young, and the current lineup kept the name Styx. DeYoung was allowed to bill himself as performing the music of Styx, or formerly of Styx, not the voice of Styx. Not Styx anything. He could not perform as Styx ever again.
So we can be free. I'm not a hero.
And here's the part that still gets me. In the years since, Shaw and Young brought back into the Styx set list the very songs they once publicly criticized. Mr. Roboto, The Best of Times, songs they had dismissed and removed specifically because DeYoung wrote them.
Robot without emotions. I'm not what you see.
Now they close shows with them. The most hurtful part to me, DeYoung said, is what it did to one of the most loyal fan bases in classic rock history. He still wants a farewell tour. Shaw and Young have made clear it isn't happening.
I've got the secret I've been hiding.
Number 3, the Eagles / Don Felder.
I know you were trying to give me the best.
The Eagles broke up on July 31st, 1980, in Long Beach, California, on stage mid-set. Guitarist Don Felder and Glenn Frey were exchanging threats between songs. Not quietly, not after the show, but between songs, while singing harmony together to a crowd of thousands.
Every night I'm lying in bed.
Frey reportedly saying to Felder on the microphone stand, "Only 3 more songs until I kick your ass." And Felder saying back, "Great, I can't wait." And then both of them pivoting to sing Best of My Love to the audience. After the show, the band dissolved. Don Henley had famously vowed they'd reunite only when, quote, hell freezes over.
thinking about all the things that we
In 1994, 14 years later, they reunited, and that album and tour were called, with appropriate self-awareness, Hell Freezes Over. But there was a catch, and if you weren't in the room when the contracts were being negotiated, you'd never know it.
the best of my love.
According to what Felder later documented, before the reunion even got underway, Frey and Henley demanded a new financial structure, one that gave the two of them 3 times what the other members received. And Felder was told, according to his account, that if he didn't sign the new agreement, he wouldn't be part of the reunion at all. He signed, because that catalog was his life's work too, and Hotel California was still Hotel California.
Coming apart at the seams.
The reunion was a massive success. They kept touring through the 90s and into the 2000s. And then, on February 6, 2001, the Eagles fired Don Felder. He filed suit, wrongful termination, breach of contract, $50 million in damages.
Don't get the best of me, you get the best of.
Henley and Frey countersued, claiming Felder had violated agreements by discussing plans to write a tell-all book. In 2007, both sides reached a confidential settlement. Neither disclosed the terms. Felder was not invited to the History of the Eagles reunion in 2013. He was not at the Kennedy Center Honors in 2016. He was not there for any of it.
My love.
The man who wrote the music to the most played song in radio history watched his own band celebrate their legacy without him. Glenn Frey died on January 18, 2016. The contracts between them outlasted one of the men who signed them.
Like a gold cloud, we could never ride.
Number 2. Pink Floyd / Roger Waters. Roger Waters built something extraordinary and then, in 1985, walked away from it, convinced that without him, it couldn't survive. He was the architect of The Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here, The Wall.
Emily tries but misunderstands.
He had been, through the mid-70s and into the 80s, the band's primary lyricist, its conceptual engine, the force that pushed Pink Floyd into the most ambitious territory any rock band had ever occupied. By the time the final cut was released in 1983, it was so much his personal vision that it was essentially a Roger Waters solo album with Pink Floyd's name on the cover.
His dreams till tomorrow.
In December 1985, Waters formally invoked the leaving member clause in his contract with their record companies and announced his departure. His assumption, stated plainly, not hedged, was that Pink Floyd was finished, that David Gilmour and Nick Mason couldn't, and wouldn't, continue without him. "I built it," he said. "I wrote it. It couldn't continue without me."
She's often inclined to borrow somebody.
Gilmour and Mason disagreed. They announced a new Pink Floyd album. They went into rehearsals, and on Halloween, October 31, 1986, Roger Waters filed proceedings in the High Court of Justice to formally dissolve the Pink Floyd partnership.
On a gown that touches the ground.
He called the band a spent force creatively. He sought a ruling that would require his unanimous consent for any use of the Pink Floyd name, the concert props, everything. He tried to legally kill the band. He lost. Waters' own lawyers told him privately that he didn't have the case he thought he had. A settlement was reached in December 1987. The terms, Waters ceded the rights to the Pink Floyd name to Gilmour and Mason permanently. He retained the conceptual rights to The Wall and the inflatable pig. That was the exchange. A Momentary Lapse of Reason was released in 1987 and became a commercial success. Pink Floyd went on to release 2 more studio albums. They played Live 8 together in 2005, a brief, emotional reunion that felt for one night like everything was possible again.
His dreams till tomorrow.
In 2020, Waters attempted what he later called a Camp David for the surviving members, a private summit, offers of reconciliation. Gilmore didn't come. The settlement from 1987 had settled it. Waters admitted years later that taking the band to court had been a mistake. I don't think any of us came out of those years from 1985 with any credit, he said at Live 8. And that part gets me. The most honest thing he ever said about it. A decade of damage acknowledged in one sentence. Number 1, Mötley Crüe.
One more night, and I'm coming on this flight.
January 28, 2014. Beecher's Madhouse Theater, Hollywood. The press is there, the cameras are there, the band's attorney, Doug Mark of Mark Music and Media Law, is there. The 4 members of Mötley Crüe are there: Nikki Sixx, Tommy Lee, Vince Neil, Mick Mars, and they sign a document.
You know I'm a dreamer, but my heart.
The attorney describes it to the assembled media. There has never been such a thing as far as I know. It's an agreement that binds the 4 of them to not utilize this trademark for touring in the future. The band calls it the Cessation of Touring Agreement. It is, the attorney confirms, the first of its kind in rock history.
So I wouldn't come home, no, just waiting.
A legally binding contract, effective December 31st, 2015, stating that after the final tour concludes, Mötley Crüe will not tour again. And if they try, if any of them pick up the phone and start those conversations, they can be sued.
Sometimes nothing keeps.
Nikki Sixx, to the assembled press, on the question of whether any amount of money could change his mind. There is no amount of money that would ever make me do it again. Vince Neil, it would take all of us to agree to do something, but I don't see us going back on our word. And then the journalist asked about loopholes, because journalists always ask about loopholes. And Sixx said, "You guys in the press, you keep looking for the loophole. We're gonna stick to our word." The final tour ran through 2014 and 2015, 97 shows, over 1 million tickets sold, gross of more than $66 million. 3 nights at the Staples Center in Los Angeles to close it out, the last one on New Year's Eve 2015. Mötley Crüe, done. In 2018, the band went back into the studio to record music for a Netflix biopic called The Dirt. The film dropped in 2019 and was a massive hit. Their streaming numbers increased by 350%. A whole new generation of fans discovered them. The band started talking.
Falling off the silver screen.
On November 18, 2019, Mötley Crüe posted a video online. It opens on the cessation agreement sitting on a desk. Machine Gun Kelly, who'd played Tommy Lee in The Dirt, narrates, "In 2014, Mötley Crüe announced their final tour. In the years since, Mötley Crüe became more popular than ever and gained an entirely new legion of fans, who, along with die-hard Crüe heads, demanded the band tear up that stupid contract." The document detonates. Actual explosives. The paper burns. The Crüe announced a stadium tour with Def Leppard. They sold out arenas across North America. The tour they'd notarized themselves out of existence went on anyway. There is a legal footnote here, and it's worth knowing. The contract was, technically, voidable, because if all 4 parties to an agreement want out of it simultaneously, the law allows it.
One more night, and I'm coming on this flight.
The only person who could have sued was one of the other signatories, and all 4 of them lit the match together. They didn't break the contract exactly. They all agreed to end it, which means Nikki Sixx was right when he told those journalists that it would take all of them to agree. He just didn't mention that all of them eventually would.
You know I'm a dreamer, but my
If you were one of those people who were there in 2015 for the actual final show, who stood in that arena on New Year's Eve and watched what you genuinely believed was the last night, you have strong feelings about this.